Hi guys! Ready for a masterclass on strategy by the world champion? This is a game Magnus played against Maxim vachier-lagrave at the Gashimov Memorial this year, where it is white to move and Magnus played bishop g5, a natural developing move which actually loses a pawn on purpose. So Magnus plays bishop g5 and lets his opponent capture on d5. After knight takes d5, this is a nice little trick that if the knight is captured, like c takes d5, the bishop was hanging, so black is winning a pawn, because after bishop e7 he will capture with the knight. This is a pawn up again. The idea of Magnus was that after knight takes d5 he has a beautiful move, bishop h6. So if you capture the bishop on h6, that means that you have damaged your pawn structure in front of the king, and this knight on f5 is going to be a beast. And this is actually forced because after bishop h6, if you have to move the knight that is hanging, so you have to play like knight f6, then bishop g7 just wins the game basically, because, well, it is even material and the black king is just horribly weak. Let's put it red, that is really weak. So you have to capture this bishop, g takes h6, where in this position white is still a pawn down. He can play either c takes d5 or what Magnus played, first check and then c takes d5. So white is a pawn down, but black's king side has been damaged. The king is weak, the pawn structure is horrible on the king side, and there's this powerful knight on f5 which I'm gonna put on red in green because it's a very strong piece. So there's a lot of compensation for the pawn, and we will soon see why Magnus won this game in such a nice and easy way actually after sacrificing this pawn. So black has to play king h8 here, since we are threatening to win the bishop thanks to this pin. King h8 and now still h4, the bishop has to go, and simply knight c e3. White is just bringing his pieces to their best possible spots. So after knight e3, this f5 knight is supported, so even if black goes bishop c8 to capture this knight, there's gonna be another knight appearing on f5. There's no point of playing that, but still bishop c8 at least pins the knight. So queen f3, bishop g7 was played, and here bishop h3, rook g8, bishop g4 was a very nice idea. This is such an interesting bishop maneuver. Look at this, the bishop was on g2, it goes to h3, and now bishop g4. The idea is bishop h5 because there's this weak pawn on f7 that we want to attack. So bishop h7 attacking the f7 pawn, bishop h5 attacking the f7 pawn, the f5 knight is attacking the h6 pawn, and generally it's just very difficult for black to defend this position. He tried with queen f6, and after bishop h5, well, it seems like everything is defended, but black doesn't have any counterplay and white can just go on and improve his pieces. Only the rook is left from development, and yep, it's just horribly difficult to play this with black in general. He captured an f5 just to make sure that there's only one knight left on the board, but this knight will just remain on f5 because with this g7 bishop you can never eliminate it, and it would take like ages to go with this knight from c5 to, let's say, e7. How can we get there? Well, it's a lot of moves, something like this. Black doesn't have time for such maneuvers. He played c6, tried to open up the position a bit, but the disadvantage of this move is that after d takes c6, of course black will regain the pawn. That wasn't the point, it's not a pawn up for white, but there's this hole on d5 in black's position that wasn't there before. So the move c6 helps black have some kind of play to open up the c5, but after queen d1, the queen will be just very well placed on d5. So it is a position where white is not winning immediately, but his position is superior thanks to these extremely powerful pieces. Look at that queen on d5 in the center, just check out this knight on f5, and the bishop on h5. Also the rooks are coming to the open files, to the semi-open files. You can double rooks on the d file. This pawn on f7 is hanging, the pawn on d6 will be hanging. White is winning. And in comparison, see, black's pieces, the worst one I would say is the g7 bishop, since it will never have any activity. It can go to f8, but even from f8 or from e7, it just bumps into his own pawns. The back position is passive, and it seems like as if it was a piece down thanks to this very bad g7 bishop. So it was a beautiful win by Magnus Carlsen. If you want to see the complete game, you can also find it, of course, in our database. Enjoy the rest of the broadcast. I will be back soon. See you later.